The morning sun broke over the metal and glass towers of New Seoul Colony. Tay woke up early as he always did. While other 12-year-old boys and girls still slept in their beds, Tay slipped out of his family's living unit. He moved quietly so he wouldn't wake his parents. Tay was small for his age. His black hair fell across his eyes as he pulled on his worn boots. Unlike the other children who wore the latest smart clothes that changed color and temperature, Tay preferred simple things. His jacket was old but warm. In his pocket, he kept small bits of food he had saved from last night's dinner. The hallways of residential Block 7 were quiet. Only cleaning robots moved about, their soft hums echoing against the walls. Tay nodded at the security guard who knew the boy's morning routine. The guard shook his head but smiled. Everyone knew about Tay's strange habits. "Off to talk to your little friends again?" the guard asked. Tay nodded. "They get hungry in the morning." The guard waved him through. "Just be at school by 8. Your teacher called your parents again yesterday." Tay hurried through the lower levels of the colony until he reached the ecological preserve. This was a large dome where plants and animals from Earth were kept alive. Most people in New Seoul only came here on school trips or special occasions. To them, these living things were just reminders of the planet they had left behind when Earth's climate had failed. But to Tay, this place was home. He pressed his hand against the entry panel and the door slid open. Inside, the air smelled different, fresh and alive, not filtered and recycled like in the rest of the colony. Trees grew tall under special lights that mimicked Earth's sun. Small streams ran through the ground and the sounds of birds and insects filled the air. "I'm here," Tay called softly. At first, nothing happened. Then a small brown rabbit hopped out from behind a bush. Its nose twitched as it looked at Tay. Most rabbits in the preserve ran from humans, but this one came right to the boy's feet. "Hello, Hop," Tay said, kneeling down. He pulled a carrot piece from his pocket. "Are you hungry today?" The rabbit took the food and stayed close to Tay's hand. The boy stroked its soft fur gently. "The other kids had a new game yesterday," Tay told the rabbit. "Something about programming battle robots. I didn't understand it." The rabbit's ears twitched and Tay nodded as if the animal had spoken to him. "I know. It doesn't matter. I'd rather be here anyway." One by one, other animals appeared. A small fox with a white-tipped tail. 3 birds that landed on a branch near Tay's head. Even the shy deer that usually stayed deep in the preserve came close enough for Tay to see its eyes. To anyone watching, it would seem like the boy was just talking to himself, while animals happened to be nearby. But Tay knew different. He felt their thoughts, not as words, but as feelings and images. The rabbit was content but worried about a hawk it had seen. The fox was curious about a new smell in the north section. The birds were planning to build a nest. Tay sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes. He let his mind open, the way he had taught himself years ago. The animal's simple thoughts flowed into him. Hunger, safety, territory, family. He answered with his own feelings. Friendship, protection, peace. This was Tay's secret. He could feel what animals felt. He could send his thoughts to them and they understood. Not with words, but with something deeper. "Tay, are you in here talking to those stupid animals again?" The harsh voice broke the quiet moment. The animals scattered instantly. The rabbit diving into a hole, the birds taking flight, the deer bounding away into the trees. Tay opened his eyes to see Juan standing at the entrance to the preserve. Juan was the tallest boy in their class with expensive neural implants that let him access information instantly. His father was a colony leader and everyone knew it. "They're not stupid," Tay said quietly, standing up. Juan laughed and walked closer. His 2 friends, Gil and Bin, followed behind him. "Look at the animal, boy. Do you think you're some kind of zookeeper?" "I just like them," Tay said, trying to move past the boys. Gil stuck out his foot and Tay tripped, falling hard onto the path. The 3 boys laughed. "My father says people like you are holding the colony back," Juan said. "We're supposed to be the future of humanity, not playing with leftover Earth pets." Tay got up slowly, brushing dirt from his clothes. "We need them. They're important." "Important?" Bin snorted. "For what, food? Entertainment?" "For life," Tay said. "All life is connected." The boys laughed harder. Juan tapped his temple where his neural implant was. "This is the future, animal boy. Technology, progress. Not furry little creatures that can't even talk." "They do talk," Tay said. "Just not with words." Juan pushed Tay back down. "You're weird, Tay. Everyone says so." Even your parents are embarrassed by you. That hurt more than the fall. Tay knew his parents worried about him. Day and Ju were important scientists who studied alien biology. They wanted their son to follow them into science, not spend his time with Earth animals that most people saw as relics of the past. "Leave me alone," Tay said, his voice stronger now. "Or what? Will you call your rabbit friends to help you?" Juan mocked. Just then a low growl came from behind a tree. The boys turned to see the preserve's oldest resident, a gray wolf that was usually kept in a separate area. Somehow it had gotten through the inner gate. Its yellow eyes were fixed on the three bullies. "Is that a wolf?" Gil whispered, backing away. The wolf took a step forward, still growling. "The gate must be broken," Ben said, his voice shaking. "Those things are dangerous." The three boys backed toward the exit. The wolf followed, its teeth showing now. "Tay, come on," Juan called, suddenly concerned for the smaller boy. But Tay wasn't afraid. He stood still as the wolf approached him. When it reached him, the great animal stopped growling and stood beside Tay, its shoulder reaching the boy's waist. "It's okay," Tay said softly, placing his hand on the wolf's head. "They're leaving now." The three bullies stared in shock before turning and running out of the preserve. The door slid shut behind them. Tay knelt beside the wolf. "Thank you, friend. But you should go back to your area before the keepers find you here." The wolf's mind touched Tay's, not with words, but with feelings of protection and kinship. Then it turned and trotted back toward its enclosure. Later that day, Tay sat alone in the school cafeteria. Word had spread about the wolf incident. Some kids said Tay had trained the wolf. Others said it was just luck. No one believed he could actually communicate with animals. "Is this seat taken?" a quiet voice asked. Tay looked up to see a girl standing there with her lunch tray. It was Sun, a new student who had transferred from the Mars colony last month. "No," Tay said, surprised. No one ever sat with him. Sun sat down and opened her juice container. "I heard about what happened in the preserve." With the wolf, Tay looked down at his food. "It wasn't a big deal." "The other kids say you talk to animals," Sun said. She didn't sound like she was making fun of him. "Can you really?" Tay hesitated. He had learned to be careful about sharing his secret. "Not with words," he finally said, "but I can feel what they feel. And they can feel me too." Instead of laughing, Sun nodded. "On Mars, my grandmother worked with the terraforming birds. She said something similar. No one believed her either." For the first time in a long while, Tay felt a spark of hope. Maybe he wasn't completely alone. That night, as Tay lay in bed, he looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, new worlds waited. New life, perhaps. He wondered if anyone else could feel what he felt. The connections between all living things. He didn't know that soon those stars would bring an answer. And that the boy who spoke to beasts would find his true purpose in a way no one in New Sol Colony could possibly imagine. 5 years passed. Tay was 17 now, taller but still slim. His quiet ways hadn't changed. While other teenagers spent their time in virtual reality or studying for placement exams, Ty still visited the ecological preserve every day. But things were different now. Tay no longer had the freedom of his childhood. After finishing basic education, he had been assigned to work as a maintenance technician. It was the lowest job available in the colony's hierarchy, cleaning air filters, fixing broken pipes, and making sure the waste systems worked properly. "You could have been anything," his father Day had said when Tay received his assignment. "With our family name, you could have trained as a scientist or engineer." Tay had only shrugged. "I like working with my hands." The truth was, being a maintenance worker gave Tay access to all parts of the colony, including the restricted areas where the oldest and rarest Earth animals were kept. His work badge opened doors that even his scientist parents couldn't enter. Today, Tay was fixing a water leak in Section 12 near the communications center. He worked quietly, tightening the pipe joints while the communications officers sat at their stations nearby, monitoring signals from Earth and the other colonies. "Anything new from Centauri?" one officer asked another. "Just the usual static. 5 years of listening and we still don't know if anyone's really there." Ty's ears perked up at this. The Centauri system was the closest star system with potentially habitable planets. 5 years ago, Earth's deep space telescopes had detected unusual energy patterns coming from one of its planets. Some believed it was proof of intelligent alien life. Others thought it was just natural radiation. As Tay worked, he half listened to the officers talking. Suddenly, a strange sound came from one of the monitoring stations. "What is that?" an officer asked, adjusting her headset. "It's coming from Centauri again, but it's different this time," another replied. More structured. Tay stopped working. Something about the sound pulled at him. He stood up slowly and moved closer to the communications console. "Hey, maintenance boy, stay back," one of the officers said. This is restricted equipment, but Tay barely heard him. The sound coming through the speakers was like nothing he had ever heard before, and yet somehow familiar. It rose and fell in patterns that reminded him of the way the preserve's birds called to each other at dawn. "Can you make it louder?" Tay asked. The officer frowned but turned up the volume. The strange sounds filled the room, clicks, whistles, and deep rumbling tones that seemed to vibrate in Tai's chest. "It's not random," Tay said quietly. "It's communication." The lead officer, a stern woman named Officer Yoon, looked at him sharply. "What did you say?" "The sounds," Tay explained. "They're like how animals communicate. Not with words, but with feeling and intent." Officer Yoon's eyes narrowed. "You're the animal boy, aren't you?" "Jae-in-ju's son." Tay nodded, used to the nickname. "Well, this isn't Animal Noise Boy. This is potentially the first alien communication ever received by humans. Our best computers and linguists have been working on it for years." "Can I listen more?" Tay asked. The officers exchanged looks, some amused, others annoyed. "Finish fixing the pipe and get out," Officer Yoon said. "This isn't a place for maintenance workers to daydream." Tay returned to his work, but he couldn't forget the sounds. They stayed in his head all day like a song he couldn't stop hearing. When his shift ended, instead of going home, he went to the preserve. The wolf, older now but still strong, was waiting for him in its special area. Over the years, the preserve keepers had given up trying to keep Tay and the wolf apart. They had a special bond that no one understood. "I heard something today," Tay told the wolf as he sat beside it. "Something from the stars." The wolf's yellow eyes watched him intently. "It wasn't human, but it wasn't like you either. It was different, but I could feel something in it, like when you called to me, but bigger somehow." Tay closed his eyes and tried to recreate the sounds in his mind. To his surprise, the wolf's ears perked up. It lifted its head and made a soft whining sound. "You feel it too?" Tay asked, surprised. The wolf stood up and paced in a circle, clearly agitated. Over the next few weeks, the strange signals from Centauri became stronger and more frequent. The colony was buzzing with excitement. Scientists and government officials held meetings day and night. Everyone was talking about first contact with alien life. Tay tried to listen to the signals whenever he could, sneaking into the communications center during his maintenance rounds. Each time he felt more certain that he understood something about them that others didn't. One day, he ran into Sun in the colony's central plaza. They had remained friends over the years, though Sun was now training to be a pilot. "Have you heard the signals?" Tay asked her. Sun nodded. "They're playing them on all the news channels now. Some people are scared." "I don't think we should be," Tay said. "They don't feel threatening." Sun looked at him curiously. "Feel? You mean you can understand them like you understand the animals?" Tay hesitated. "Not exactly. But there's something familiar about them. It's like they're searching for something. Or someone," Sun said quietly. That night, Tay had a strange dream. He was floating in darkness, surrounded by stars. In the distance, he saw massive shapes moving through space. They had long bodies and wings that stretched wider than colony ships. Their scales shimmered with colors Tay had never seen before. In the dream, one of the creatures turned its great head toward him. Its eyes were ancient and wise, filled with stars. It opened its mouth and made the same sounds Tay had heard in the communications center. Tay woke up gasping. The dream had felt more real than any he'd ever had. He could still feel the creature's presence in his mind, like an echo. The next day, the colony governor made an announcement. A ship called the Harmony would be sent to the Centauri system to investigate the signals. The best scientists and diplomats from Earth and all its colonies would be on board. "This is humanity's most important journey," the governor said on the view screens throughout the colony. "We will make first contact with alien intelligence and open a new chapter in human history." Tay watched the announcement with his parents in their living unit. His mother, Ju, was excited. "They've asked your father to join the mission," she told Tay, "as one of the lead xenobiologists." Tay looked at his father in surprise. "You're going?" Tay nodded. "It's the opportunity of a lifetime. I leave in 3 days. What if they're dangerous?" Tay asked. The signals show no signs of hostility, his father replied. And we'll be careful. Tay wanted to tell his father about his dream, about the feeling he got from the signals. But he knew Day wouldn't understand. His father believed in science and data, not feelings and dreams. That night, Tay snuck out of the residential block. Using his maintenance badge, he made his way to the colony's main communications array on the outer hull. It was forbidden for anyone but communications officers to be there, but Tay had to try something. The array room was empty. Tay sat at the main console and looked at the controls. He had watched the officers enough times to know how to operate the basic functions. With shaking hands, he opened a channel directed at the Centauri system. Then, instead of speaking, Tay closed his eyes and focused his mind the way he did with the animals. He sent out feelings, curiosity, peace, welcome. He pictured Earth's creatures, humans, and the stars between them and Centauri. For several minutes, nothing happened. Tay was about to give up when the console lit up with an incoming signal. The same strange sounds filled the room, but this time they were stronger, more urgent, and this time Tay understood. They were coming. Not just to make contact, but to find someone specific. Someone who could hear them. Someone who could bridge the gap between their kind and humans. They were looking for him. The door to the array room slid open. Officer Yoon stood there with 2 security guards. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "This is a restricted area." Tay turned to her, his eyes wide. "They're coming," he said. "And they're not what we think they are." "Arrest him," Officer Yoon ordered the guards. "Unauthorized access to communications equipment is a serious offense." As the guards took Tay's arms, the console behind them lit up again. A new message was coming through, stronger than any before. The sounds made the metal walls of the room vibrate. Officer Yoon stared at the console in shock. "What did you do?" "I answered them," Tay said simply. "And now they know someone is listening." Tay sat in a small holding cell in the colony's security center. The walls were plain white with only a simple bed and toilet. He had been there for 3 days since his arrest at the communications array. Many important people had come to question him. Scientists asked how he had made the signal stronger. Security officers wanted to know why he had broken the rules. Even the colony governor had visited, her face stern as she asked what Tay had done to the communication system. Tay told them the truth. "I just sent my feelings to them, like I do with the animals." No one believed him. They thought he had used some kind of technology or hack. How else could a simple maintenance worker cause such a powerful response from the alien signal? On the 4th day, the door to Tay's cell opened. His father, Day, stood there looking tired and angry. "You've delayed the mission to Centauri," Day said as he entered. "The governor is concerned about security now." "I'm sorry," Tay said. "But I had to try." Day sat on the edge of the bed. "Why, Tay? Why do you always have to be different? First the animals, now this." Tay looked at his hands. "The signals. They feel like they're searching for something, or someone." "Signals don't feel like anything," Day said. "They're just energy patterns. Like the patterns animals make when they call to each other," Tay insisted. "There's meaning in them," Day sighed. "The governor has agreed to release you into my custody. The Harmony leaves tomorrow and I'll be on it. Your mother will watch over you while I'm gone." "Dad, please," Tay said, leaning forward.
"Don't go, not yet."
"There's something about these aliens that's different from what everyone thinks." "That's enough, Tay," Day said firmly. "This is the most important scientific mission in human history. I won't miss it because my son has strange ideas." The next day, Tay stood with his mother Ju at the viewing platform as the Harmony prepared to leave. The ship was massive, a sleek silver vessel with Earth's flag and the United Colonies symbol painted on its side. "Your father will be fine," Ju said, putting her arm around Tay's shoulders. "The journey to Centauri takes 3 months with the new engines. They'll be back before you know it." Tay watched silently as the great ship lifted off, its engines glowing blue against the black of space. He felt a heaviness in his chest, a sense that something was wrong. "They don't understand what they're going to meet," he said quietly. Life in the colony returned to normal after the Harmony left. Tay went back to his maintenance job, though now he was banned from working near the communications center. The strange signals from Centauri had stopped completely since the night of Tay's arrest. 2 weeks after the ship's departure, Tay was cleaning air filters in the lower levels when he ran into Sun. She was wearing her pilot training uniform, her hair cut short in the style of space cadets. "I heard what happened," she said. About the communications array. Tay nodded, embarrassed. Everyone thinks I'm even stranger now. I don't, Sun said. I think you might be right about the signals. Tay looked up in surprise. Really? Sun looked around to make sure no one was listening. I've been helping in the small craft hangar. Last night I saw something on the long-range scanners. Something big is moving toward our solar system from the direction of Centauri. The Harmony wouldn't be returning yet, Tay said, his heart beating faster. No, Sun agreed. This is something else. And the colony leaders are keeping it quiet. That night Tay couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the dream he'd had. The massive creatures with wings that spanned the darkness of space. Were they real? Were they coming here? He got out of bed and went to the window. The stars looked the same as always, but now Tay wondered what was out there, moving toward them. 3 months passed. The colony buzzed with excitement as the day of the Harmony's return approached. Tay's mother was especially happy, counting the days until Day would be home. But Tay's worry grew stronger. The dreams of the space creatures had continued, becoming more vivid each night. In the latest dream, one of the creatures had spoken directly to his mind. We are coming for the one who hears. The day the Harmony was due to return, Tay was working in the ecological preserve, helping the keepers feed the animals. Suddenly, all the screens in the colony flashed red with an emergency alert. Attention, all citizens. The governor's voice announced. The Harmony has returned early and is requesting emergency docking. Please remain calm and follow all security instructions. Tay ran to the viewing platform, pushing through the crowd that had gathered there. In the distance, he could see the Harmony approaching the colony. But something was wrong. The ship's sleek silver hull was damaged, with black marks along one side as if it had been burned. What happened to it? Someone in the crowd asked. Did they meet the aliens? Another voice wondered. The Harmony docked at the main bay. Medical teams rushed inside to help the crew. Tay waited anxiously with his mother for news about his father. Hours later, they were called to the medical center. Day was alive but injured. He lay in a bed, his right arm and chest covered in bandages. His face was pale. Dad, Tay cried, running to his bedside. Day opened his eyes slowly. Tay, your mother. Ju took her husband's hand, tears in her eyes. What happened? What did you find? They weren't what we expected, Day said, his voice weak. Not at all what we expected. The aliens? Tay asked. What were they like? Day's eyes focused on Tay with new intensity. They were massive, like nothing we've ever seen. They looked almost like the ancient dragons from Earth legends. Tay felt his heart skip. Dragons? They live in space itself, Day continued. Their bodies can withstand the vacuum. They breathe stellar energy. And their minds, he shuddered. Their minds are powerful. They can reach into your thoughts. Did they attack you? Ju asked. Day shook his head. Not at first. We tried to communicate using all our translation programs. Nothing worked. Then they became agitated, like they were looking for something we couldn't provide. Or someone, Tay whispered. Day looked at his son. They kept sending the same pattern over and over. Our linguists couldn't understand it, but it seemed important. What happened to the ship? Ju asked. When we couldn't give them what they wanted, one of them breathed fire, actual fire in space. It shouldn't be possible. We barely escaped. Day closed his eyes, exhausted. They followed us. They're coming here. The colony erupted into panic when the news spread. The governor declared a state of emergency. Military ships were called from Earth to defend the colony. Everyone feared an alien invasion. Tay watched the preparations from the window of his family's living unit. Workers were activating the colony's defense shields. Ships were being prepared for evacuation. They're not coming to hurt us, Tay told his mother. They're looking for something. Your father says they're dangerous, Ju replied, packing emergency supplies into a bag. We need to be ready to evacuate if ordered. That night, as the colony slept uneasily, Tay had the most vivid dream yet. He saw the space dragons clearly now, their scales shimmering with colors that shifted like the northern lights on Earth. Their eyes held the wisdom of ages. They were ancient beings who had traveled the stars long before humans existed. In the dream, the largest dragon spoke directly to Tay's mind. The one who speaks to beasts must come forward. Only through you can we speak to the small ones. Tay woke with a start. He knew what he had to do. Quietly he dressed and slipped out of the living unit. The hallways were mostly empty, with only security officers making their rounds. Tay avoided them easily, using his knowledge of the maintenance tunnels. He made his way to the ecological preserve. Inside, the animals were restless. The birds fluttered nervously in their trees. The mammals paced in their enclosures. Even the plants seemed to bend toward Tay as he passed. The wolf was waiting for him as if it knew he would come. "They're looking for me," Tay told the wolf as he knelt beside it. "The dragons from space. They want someone who can understand them." The wolf's yellow eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. It nudged Tay's hand with its nose. "I need to go to them," Tay said. "But I'm afraid." The wolf pressed its head against Tay's chest. Tay felt the animal's courage flow into him, steady and strong. "Thank you, old friend," Tay whispered. He stood up and walked to the preserve's control panel. Using his maintenance codes, he opened all the inner gates. The animals could now move freely throughout the preserve. It wasn't freedom, but it was the best he could offer them. Then Tay made his way to the outer hull of the colony, to a small airlock used for exterior repairs. He knew the colony would never let him leave willingly. They would think he was crazy or suicidal, but Tay knew the truth. The space dragons weren't coming to destroy. They were coming to connect, to find the one human who could understand them as he understood Earth's animals. As he prepared the airlock, Tay looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient beings were approaching, and for the first time in his life, Tay didn't feel like an outcast. He felt like he had a purpose. The colony alarm suddenly blared. A voice came over the speakers. "Attention all citizens. Alien objects detected entering orbit. This is not a drill. Proceed to emergency shelters immediately." Tay took a deep breath. It was time. Red emergency lights flashed throughout New Sol Colony. People ran to the shelters, carrying only what they could grab quickly. Security officers directed the flow of scared colonists trying to keep order. "All citizens must report to emergency shelters immediately," the announcement repeated over and over. "This is not a drill." In the small airlock at the edge of the colony, Tay finished putting on a maintenance spacesuit. It wasn't designed for long trips in space, just for short repairs on the colony's outer hull. But it would protect him long enough to do what he needed to do. Tay's hands shook as he sealed the helmet. He had never been outside the colony before. No one went outside without special training and permission. What he was doing was not just against the rules, it was dangerous. "Warning. Unauthorized airlock activation," the computer said as Tay started the opening sequence. "Please enter security override." Tay typed in the maintenance code he had memorized long ago. The computer paused, then continued. "Override accepted. Airlock cycle beginning." The inner door sealed shut. Air hissed as it was pulled from the small chamber. Tay's ears popped, and the suit stiffened around him as the pressure changed. Then the outer door slowly opened, revealing the blackness of space. Tay stood at the edge, looking out at the stars. The colony was in orbit around a planet called New Earth, though it wasn't much like the original Earth at all. From here, Tay could see the planet below, a dusty red world where humans were trying to grow plants and create a new home. But what caught Tay's attention was above him. 5 massive shapes moved through space toward the colony. They were just as he had seen in his dreams. Huge creatures with long bodies and wide wings that somehow worked in the vacuum of space. Their scales shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and change. Dragons. Real space dragons. The colony's defense systems were already responding. Small fighter ships launched from the military bay, weapon systems on the hull powered up, their lights glowing blue against the metal. "No," Tay whispered. "Don't fight them." He pushed off from the airlock, floating out into space. The suit had a small thruster pack for moving during repairs. Tay had never used one before, but he had watched training videos. He pressed the control on his wrist and a short burst pushed him further from the colony. "Attention unidentified spacesuit," a voice crackled in his helmet. "Return to the colony immediately. You're in violation of emergency protocols." Tay recognized the voice. It was Officer Yoon from the communications center. "I can't," Tay replied. "They're looking for me." "Tay? Is that you?" Officer Yoon sounded shocked. "Get back inside now." "Those creatures destroyed the harmony." "They didn't understand," Tay said. "But I do." He turned off the communication system in his helmet. Then, floating in the silence of space, Tay closed his eyes and opened his mind the way he did with the animals in the preserve. He sent out his thoughts, not in words, but in feelings and images. He showed the dragons his life in the colony, his connection to Earth's animals, his understanding of their signals. For a long moment, nothing happened. Tay floated alone in the cold emptiness, a tiny figure against the vastness of space. Then he felt it, a response. A powerful mind touched his own. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, even with the wolf. This mind was ancient and vast, filled with knowledge of stars and planets Tay had never seen. The largest dragon changed course. It moved away from the colony and toward Tay. Its massive body dwarfed him. It was longer than 3 colony ships put together. Its wings spread wide, catching the light of the nearby star. Tay's heart pounded in his chest. Fear and wonder filled him as the creature approached. Its head alone was bigger than the small ships the colony used for planetary landings. The dragon stopped a short distance from Tay. Its eyes were like pools of swirling stars, deep and ancient. It opened its mouth, revealing teeth that looked like crystals, but instead of attacking, it released a cloud of glowing particles that surrounded Tay. The particles seeped through his suit, touching his skin. They didn't hurt. Instead, they seemed to connect him more deeply to the dragon's mind. "I hear you," Tay said, though he knew the dragon couldn't hear his voice in the vacuum of space. The dragon's response came not as words, but as a flood of images and feelings. Tay saw stars being born and dying. He saw planets where creatures like the dragons lived in harmony with smaller beings. He saw the dragons traveling between stars, searching for others who could understand them. They called themselves the Rin. They were the oldest living things in the galaxy. They had seeded life on many worlds, including Earth, long ago, and now they had returned to find their children. "Why me?" Tay asked in his mind. "Why can I hear you when others can't?" The answer came as a series of images. Earth animals communicating, early humans living close to nature, and then humans slowly losing that connection as they built cities and technology. The ability to hear the thoughts of other living things had once been common among humans, but it had faded over time. Only a few, like Tay, still carried the gift. Suddenly, Tay felt a jolt. His suit's warning system flashed red. The air supply was getting low. He had been outside too long. The dragon sensed his danger. It moved closer, its great head coming near enough that Tay could have touched it if he reached out. More images flowed into Tay's mind. The dragon taking him to their world, teaching him their ways, showing him wonders no human had ever seen. It was offering him a choice: come with them or return to the colony. Tay hesitated. He thought of his parents, of Sun, of the wolf and the other animals in the preserve. Could he leave everything he knew? Before he could decide, a bright light cut through space. One of the colony's defense lasers had fired, hitting the space near the dragon. It was a warning shot. The dragon pulled back, its mind filling with concern. The other dragons moved closer, forming a protective circle. "No!" Tay tried to send his thoughts to the colony. "Don't attack them!" Another laser fired, this time striking one of the smaller dragons. The creature writhed in pain, its scales flaring bright red. The largest dragon, the one that had communicated with Tay, opened its mouth. Energy gathered there, glowing like a small sun. "Please," Tay begged in his mind. "Don't hurt them. They're just afraid." The dragon paused, its eyes fixed on Tay again. Then it closed its mouth, the energy fading. Instead, it moved its massive tail, creating a wave of force that pushed Tay back toward the colony. The message was clear: return to your people. Tay's suit thrusters activated automatically when it sensed the colony's beacon. He was pulled back toward the airlock he had left. As he moved away from the dragons, their minds stayed connected to his. One final message came through, a promise. They would wait. They would not attack. But they needed Tay to help them communicate with humans. As Tay reached the airlock, he saw a figure waiting inside. It was Sun wearing a pilot's spacesuit. "Tay," she called over the emergency channel. "What were you thinking?" The outer door closed behind him and air filled the chamber. When the pressure normalized, Sun helped Tay remove his helmet. "I had to meet them," Tay said, his voice hoarse. "They've been calling me." "The whole colony is looking for you," Sun said. "Your parents are worried sick." "And those things outside, dragons," Tay said. "They're called the Rin, and they don't want to hurt us." Sun looked at him with wide eyes. "You actually communicated with them?" Tay nodded. They're ancient beings who helped create life on Earth and other planets. They've come back to reconnect with us. The colony leaders won't believe that, Sun said. They're preparing to launch all weapons against them. Then I have to stop them, Tay said, moving toward the inner door. The dragons are waiting for me to explain. If we attack them again, they might defend themselves. And they're much more powerful than we are. As the inner door opened, they found security officers waiting with weapons ready. Officer Yoon stood at the front, her face stern. Tay, son of Day and Ju, you are under arrest for violating emergency protocols and endangering the colony, she said. Officer Yoon, please, Tay said urgently. I need to speak to the governor. The aliens aren't hostile. I've communicated with them. Take him to the holding cells, Officer Yoon ordered the guards. The boy has clearly lost his mind. As the guards took Tay's arms, the colony shook violently. The lights flickered and a deep rumbling sound filled the air. What was that? One of the guards asked. Officer Yoon checked her communication device. The aliens are moving. They're positioning themselves around the colony. They won't attack unless we do, Tay insisted. They're waiting for me to help them talk to humans. Officer Yoon looked at Tay with new interest. How could you possibly know that? Because I understand them, Tay said. The same way I understand the animals. Please let me help before this turns into a war we can't win. The colony shook again. The emergency lights flashed brighter. Take him to the governor, Officer Yoon finally said. If there's even a small chance he's right, we need to hear it. As the guards led Tay through the corridors, colonists watched with fear and curiosity. The boy who spoke to beasts was now claiming to speak with the stars. And this time everyone was listening. The colony's main meeting hall was filled with people. The governor sat at a large table with her advisors. Military officers stood along one wall, their faces serious. Scientists, including Tay's parents, gathered on the other side. In the center of the room stood Tay, still wearing his maintenance uniform. Governor Han was a tall woman with gray hair and a stern face. She had led New Seoul Colony for 15 years. Now she faced the biggest crisis of her career. Let me understand this, she said, looking at Tay. You claim these creatures, these space dragons, are trying to communicate with us? Yes, Tay said. His voice was steady despite his fear. They're called the Rin. They're ancient beings who helped create life on many planets, including Earth. And they speak to you? One of the military officers asked. His voice showed he didn't believe Tay. Not with words, Tay explained. They share thoughts and images. It's like how I communicate with animals, but much stronger. Tay's father, Day, stood up. His arm was still bandaged from the Harmony mission. Governor, my son has always had an unusual connection with animals. We thought it was just a child's imagination, but what, Dr. Day? The governor asked. But perhaps there is something to it, Day finished. The creatures we encountered at Centauri did try to communicate with us. When we couldn't understand, they became frustrated. The room screen suddenly lit up, showing the space outside the colony. The 5 dragons floated in formation, their massive bodies creating shadows on the colony's solar panels. They've been in that position for 2 hours, a military officer reported. They haven't attacked, but they haven't left either. They're waiting, Tay said. Waiting for me to help them talk to you. Governor Han studied Tay carefully. And if we let you try to communicate with them, what exactly would you do? I need to go back out there, Tay said. But not alone this time. I need to show them that we want to understand them too. The room filled with voices, some arguing against the plan, others supporting it. The military wanted to attack while the dragons weren't moving. The scientists wanted to study them from a safe distance. Quiet, Governor Han called. When the room was silent again, she looked at Tay. These creatures damaged the Harmony and injured its crew. Why should we trust them? Because they could have destroyed the ship completely if they wanted to, Tay said. They're much more powerful than us, but they don't want to hurt us. They want to reconnect with us. Reconnect? One of the scientists asked. Long ago, humans could communicate with animals and other living things like I can, Tay explained. The Rin helped create that ability. But over time, as humans built technology and moved away from nature, most people lost the connection. The governor thought for a long moment. Then she nodded. We'll try it your way, Tay, but not without precautions. 3 hours later, Tay stood in the colony's main airlock. This time, he wore a proper spacesuit with better air supply and communication systems. With him were Sun, who had volunteered to pilot a small shuttle, and Officer Yoon, who would represent the colony's security forces. Are you sure about this? Sun asked as they prepared to leave. Tay nodded. The Rin won't hurt us. They've been waiting thousands of years for this moment. I still think this is a mistake, Officer Yoon said, checking her emergency weapon. But the governor's orders are clear. We try talking first. The shuttle launched from the colony, moving slowly toward where the dragons waited. Through the front window, Tay could see them clearly now. Their long bodies stretching hundreds of meters, their wings spread wide, their scales shifting colors like living rainbows. They're beautiful, Sun whispered as she piloted the shuttle. The largest dragon, the one Tai had communicated with before, moved toward them. Its massive head came close to the shuttle, eyes like swirling galaxies looking in at the humans. I'm going outside, Tay said, moving toward the shuttle's small airlock. Be careful, Sun said. Officer Yoon said nothing, but her hand stayed near her weapon. Tay floated out of the shuttle, the tether line keeping him connected to the ship. The dragon moved closer, its mind reaching for Tay's. The connection was immediate and strong. Images and feelings flowed between them. The dragon showing Tay its home among the stars, its long life spanning thousands of years, its joy at finding a human who could understand. Tay shared his own life, growing up in the colony, his connection to Earth's animals, the mockery he had faced, and his wonder at meeting the Rin. My name is Tay, he said in his mind. What should I call you? The dragon sent an image of light breaking through clouds after a storm. Tay understood this was its name, though humans couldn't pronounce it. I'll call you Rin, Tay decided, using the name of their species. Why have you come to us now? The answer came as a series of images. Earth growing sick, humans leaving for the stars, the connection between species breaking. The Rin had watched from afar, waiting for the right time to return. Now, with humans spreading to new worlds, it was time to restore what had been lost. They want to help us, Tay said over the communication system to Sun and Officer Yoon. They think we've lost something important, our connection to other living things. Ask them why they attacked the Harmony, Officer Yoon said. Tay sent the question to Rin. The response showed the Harmony approaching the dragons. Humans inside trying to communicate with machines and computers. The dragons had tried to reach their minds but found them closed. When the dragons had moved closer to examine the ship, the humans had fired weapons in fear. It was a misunderstanding, Tay explained. Both sides were afraid. Rin moved its massive head closer to Tay. A small part of its body began to glow. The light separated from the dragon and floated toward Tay, a small shining orb. What is it doing? Officer Yoon asked, her voice tense. It's offering something, Tay said, reaching out his gloved hand. The orb settled in his palm, glowing through the material of his glove. Tay felt warmth spread up his arm and into his body. His mind expanded, the connection with Rin growing stronger. Suddenly he could sense the other dragons too, their minds touching his, and more. He could feel Sun and Officer Yoon in the shuttle, their confusion and wonder. He could sense the people in the colony, thousands of minds going about their lives. I can feel everyone, Tay said, his voice filled with awe. The Rin are showing me how all minds are connected. Through this new awareness, Tay understood the Rin's purpose more clearly. They hadn't come to take over or destroy. They had come to teach, to help humans remember what they had forgotten. Bring them to the colony, Tay said to Sun. It's time for everyone to understand. The governor won't allow those creatures inside. Officer Yoon objected. Not inside, Tay said, but close enough for me to connect them to others. Sun piloted the shuttle back to the colony, the dragons following at a distance. As they approached, Tay could see people gathered at every window watching in fear and wonder. The shuttle docked, and Tay was rushed to the meeting hall again. This time even more people had gathered. The screen showed the dragons hovering near the colony, their bodies glowing softly against the blackness of space. What did they give you? Governor Han asked, looking at Tay's hand where the orb had been. Understanding, Tay said. The ability to connect minds. He stepped to the center of the room and closed his eyes. Using what the Rin had taught him, he opened his mind wide and reached out to everyone present. It was hard at first, like trying to lift something too heavy. But then he felt Rin helping him, its ancient mind supporting his. Gasps filled the room as people felt the connection. It wasn't like talking. It was deeper, a sharing of feelings and thoughts that went beyond words. Through Tay, the people in the room felt the Rin's peaceful intentions. They saw glimpses of the dragon's long history, their journeys between stars, their patient watching of Earth as humans evolved. And the Rin, through Tay, felt the humans' fear, curiosity, and wonder. "This is what we've forgotten," Tay said, his voice quiet but heard by all. "The connection between all living things. The Rin want to help us remember." Tay's father, Day, stepped forward, tears in his eyes. "I feel it. After all these years of studying alien life, I never imagined." He looked at his son with new respect. "You were right, Tay. All those years you were right about the animals." Over the next few days, more people came to experience the connection. The Rin remained near the colony, patient and peaceful. Scientists studied them from a distance, learning about their biology and the way they lived in space itself. Tay became the bridge between humans and dragons. The boy who had once been mocked for talking to animals was now honored for talking to the stars. 1 month after the dragon's arrival, a special platform was built on the outside of the colony. It was a place where humans could safely meet with the Rin. Tay spent hours there each day helping others learn to open their minds. Some people found it easier than others. Children were often the quickest to learn. Sun discovered she had a natural talent for it. Even Officer Yoon eventually managed a brief connection. "What will happen now?" Sun asked Tay as they sat together in the ecological preserve. The animals had become calmer since the Rin arrived, as if they too felt the growing connection. "The Rin say this is just the beginning," Tay said, stroking the old wolf's fur. "They've visited other worlds with other species. They want to bring all their children together." "Their children? All the life they helped create across the galaxy," Tay explained. "They believe we're all connected, all part of the same great pattern." The wolf looked up at Tay, its yellow eyes wise and knowing. Through his enhanced connection, Tay could feel the animal's thoughts more clearly than ever before. "He says he always knew you were special," Tay told Sun, smiling. Sun laughed. "So the boy who spoke to beasts will now help us speak to the stars." Tay looked out the preserve's window at the stars beyond. Among them, the Rin waited patiently for humanity to remember what they had forgotten. That in the great web of life, no creature was meant to be alone. "Not just me," Tay said. "All of us. We just needed someone to remind us how to listen." The wolf pressed against Tay's side, and above the colony, the dragons shimmered like living rainbows against the black of space. The boy who had once been an outcast had found his purpose at last, bridging the worlds between beasts and stars, helping humanity remember its place in the great family of life.